We are all in danger. It is evil itself. In December 2016, just weeks before Donald Trump took office, something happened in Antarctica, and it shook the world, at least for those paying attention. Buzz Aldrin, the second man on the moon, tweeted, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." And below it, a chilling image of a pyramid-shaped mountain rising from the ice. The tweet vanished almost instantly, but not before hundreds and maybe even thousands grabbed a screenshot. And I remember that tweet. Aldrin had just visited the South Pole, aiming to be the oldest person to reach it at 86 years old. And he made it, but then he fell ill and was evacuated on December 1st, 2016, with altitude sickness. Days later, this tweet appeared. "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." Well, what did Buzz Aldrin see to make him tweet something like this out? Or is this a complete fake? Either way, there's a lot of fake stuff on the internet that is out there to this day that is absolute nonsense. And yet this tweet goes up and pulled down, goes up and is pulled down. I have questions. The photograph that appears in the alleged Aldrin tweet is not the same massive structure that most people point to as an artificial construction. That is a massive structure spanning 6,500 feet across, or 2 kilometers, and that's well over a mile. It's a bit like stacking 8 football fields end to end. And it's not alone. There are smaller formations nearby that echo the layout of the Giza Plateau in Egypt, where the Great Pyramid spans just 756 feet at its base, roughly 13 acres as its footprint. Yet the resemblance is uncanny. It has been argued that some of the pyramids that they are referring to are actually natural formations. That might be true, but where we go into this high strangeness are the pyramids that look like they're eerily placed exactly as what you find on the Giza Plateau. To make everyone a lot more curious, the Antarctic Treaty was signed in 1959, and it locks down the continent. No mining, no military bases, and strict limits on who can even set foot there. Entire regions are off limits, and Google Maps shows blurred spots where bases should be. So what are they hiding? Some speculate it's more than just ice. Whispers of secret underground facilities, subglacial lakes, and even aliens. Aliens. There are those who believe that extraterrestrials have been here for millennia, even going so far as saying they control humanity from beneath the ice. To add to the high strangeness is the Piri-Reis map, crafted in 1513 by an Ottoman cartographer, unveils a chilling enigma. An ice-free Antarctica, mapped centuries before its discovery, drawn from ancient lost charts and some whisper back to Alexander the Great. It hints at a forgotten era when the frozen continent lay free of ice. What ancient minds knew such secrets? And what vanished truth lies buried in its origins? And how did it lose its warm, lush climate? Could a major climatic event, triggered by a pole shift, transform Antarctica from a warm, lush paradise into a frozen wasteland in mere hours? Evidence for such a cataclysm might lie in Siberia, where in 1901 a mammoth was unearthed from permafrost, its stomach holding undigested buttercups, a temperate meal frozen mid-digestion. Some scientists argue this rapid flash freeze dated to around 44,000 years ago. which suggests a violent climate upheaval that not only preserved the mammoth, but could have also plunged Antarctica into a deep freeze. 44,000 years ago. Now, where have we heard that before? Isn't 44,000 years ago about the same age as the Giza structure recently disclosed to the public in March 2025? Is this just a coincidence? Interesting. You might think that all this high strangeness is relegated to the ancient past, but it doesn't end there. There's Admiral Byrd. Admiral Richard E. Byrd, a renowned American polar explorer and naval officer, led a massive 1946 to 1947 Operation High Jump, an expedition to Antarctica, where the President of the United States deployed an unprecedented armada of 3,000 ships and 4,700 men, officially to establish a research base and test military equipment in extreme conditions. However, Byrd recorded a far stranger tale in his secret diary during this mission. The diary, alleged suppressed by the government, describes a lush, ice-free valley, a shimmering crystal city, and an encounter with, quote, the Master, end quote, a being who warned of humanity's nuclear dangers, revealing a hidden world that challenges everything we know. Could this cataclysmic shift 44,000 years ago have buried an advanced civilization in Antarctica's ice, and only to be glimpsed by Admiral Byrd a millennia later? The official narrative tells us Operation High Jump was about preparing for a potential cold weather warfare, especially with tensions rising between U.S. and the Soviet Union as the Cold War loomed. Antarctica, with its harsh conditions, was a perfect testing ground, where a conflict actually with the Soviets might take place. But 4,700 men and 13 ships? That's the largest expedition ever sent to Antarctica, even to this day. It's not hard to wonder if there was another motive. And that's where things get really intriguing, because Antarctica wasn't just on the U.S. radar. Oh no. The Nazis had their eyes on the frozen continent long before Operation High Jump. If the Nazis were experimenting with advanced technology in Antarctica, whether alien or not, could that explain why the U.S. sent such a massive force in 1946? Some believe so, that Operation High Jump wasn't just about the training. It was a massive mission to find and destroy a secret Nazi base in New Swabia, or often called Base 211. And according to this, the Nazis had built an underground fortress during World War II, which supplied the U-boats that they continued their experiments after Germany's defeat. And here's where Argentina comes into play. In July and August 1945, just months after Germany's surrender, two Nazi U-boats, U-530 and U-977, surrendered at the Argentine naval base of Mar del Plata. Argentina, under Juan Perón, was known to be sympathetic to the Nazis, and many high-ranking Nazis fled there after the war. Mar del Plata is roughly 1,200 miles from Antarctica, a manageable distance for submarines to travel, especially if the Nazis had a base in New Swabia. Now, some speculate that these U-boats were part of a larger operation to transport Nazi officials, technology, and even Hitler himself to the Antarctic base. Could Argentina have been a staging point for the Nazis to maintain their Antarctic operations? Still, the scale of Operation High Jump raises questions. If it was just a training exercise, why so many ships? Why so many men? And some point to Admiral Byrd's cryptic comments after the expedition, reportedly made to a Chilean newspaper, where he allegedly warned of a threat of flying objects that could travel from pole to pole at incredible speeds. Could this be a hint of a Nazi flying saucer or something even more otherworldly? And the truth remains elusive. Let's connect the dots. In 2016, Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, reportedly tweeted, quote, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself," end quote, alongside a photo of a pyramid-like formation in Antarctica, sparking a wave of intrigue. And though the tweet's authenticity remains in debate, this mysterious formation eerily mirrors the Giza Plateau, hinting at ancient connections that deepen with the Reese map of 1513, which depicts an ice-free Antarctica and is said to be the base of even older documents, suggesting a lost civilization. And adding to the enigma is the flash-frozen mammoth, its stomach still holding undigested flowers, dates back 44,000 years, coinciding with the newly discovered Giza structure from the same period, raising questions about the cataclysmic event that might have reshaped the world. Then there's Admiral Richard Byrd and his massive 1946 to 1947 Operation High Jump expedition, involving 4,700 men and 13 ships, officially to test military equipment in extreme cold. But its scale has fueled speculation of hunt for Nazi bases in Antarctica, where the Nazis had shown intense interest since their 1938-39 expedition to New Swabia, possibly seeking ancient technology or occult secrets tied to myths of a hollow earth. Byrd, a highly credible military officer, later gave eerie warnings, reportedly speaking of an alien master and flying saucers capable of traveling from pole to pole in minutes, if not less, as documented in the supposed 1947 interview with a Chilean newspaper. These threads of mystery spanning ancient maps, frozen relics, and cryptic warnings set the stage for my remote viewing session, where I'll attempt to peer into the icy depths of Antarctica and uncover what secrets truly lie beneath. Looking to heal or grow as an energy healer? Visit sallyknop.com for powerful energy healing sessions to balance your mind, body, and spirit. And for new and professional energy healers, mdhmap.com is your go-to companion with tutorial videos to guide you from beginner to pro. Subscribe for just $12 a month or save $19 with our annual plan at $125 a year. Start your journey today and ignite the superhuman in you. Well, here we are at the remote view. And remember, you can remote view too. All you have to do is get those trapped emotional energies out of the road, put yourself in neutral, and you'd be surprised what can come to you when you practice a technique of remote viewing. So let's get into this. Now, I actually reached out with one of my fellow people to find out if she got the same thing in the remote view. I sent her a list of questions, and I was so excited to find out she got the same thing as I did. And it was tough for me to even do this video because it seemed a little too out there even for me, but it's what we got. So we compared notes today, and I think we were a little bit surprised. So I'll just give you what our sum up is, and I actually made notes, so allow me to get into this, and I'll give you what we agreed on, which was like almost all of it. All right, so we agreed that Buzz Aldrin did make the tweet. He did intentionally make that tweet. And yep, it was pulled down by the powers that be. Was it for the powers of good or the powers of dark? That does seem a little murky. It feels like both have a benefit in that being removed. One, if you're on the side of good, you don't want to panic the public. If you're on the side of bad, you don't want anybody knowing your secret. So both sides actually had a reason for making sure that that tweet didn't stand. Now, what can I say? What prompted that tweet? I feel, and it would be so interesting, and I hope Buzz Aldrin will actually talk about this at some point to either validate or invalidate what I'm about to say. But from where I sit, and even from my other remote viewer, we saw that he was engaged or viewed. There feels like there's a separation, but it's like he viewed or came into knowledge of that there was, what do I want to say, an advanced being, but not in the service to others. I'll just leave it at that. That's who I feel like he either came in contact with or became aware of. And it felt really dark. And that's why he tweeted out what he did. All right. And yes, definitely an advanced being. Now, let's go to Admiral Byrd. It feels to me that Admiral Byrd was actually on an expedition to locate Nazi bases in Antarctica. It feels to me that before the war's end, the United States knew that they were going to Antarctica, but they couldn't figure out why. Now, do they have, I think their big concern was that they had stored away, I wouldn't say they were full weapons of mass destruction, but it feels like they could be made into that. And it's like they're just kind of retracting back to a place, and so they can kind of get things going again and come back with a vengeance, if you will. And so that was a real concern. And the other thing too, I don't feel that Truman wanted the Soviet Union to know his reasons for going down there, because he didn't want to get into a kerfuffle with the Soviet Union over what potentially might be hidden by the Nazis in these bases in Antarctica. So I feel like that's the reason they truly went. Now, of course, the cover story, because you got 13 ships, battleships, headed to Antarctica, along with 4,700 men, even in those days, that's hard to hide. So you had to have some kind of a cover story. And that cover story was, we're going to be testing military equipment in severe temperatures. I don't think that Stalin, I think he was, whoever the leader of the USSR was at the time, really bought that. But I also feel that their finances were so depleted that they really didn't have, I mean, truly, I think they were more of a hard shell. But if we wanted to, quote, take them out in those days, I think it would have been a cakewalk, because they were just so depleted after the end of World War II. But Truman did not want anybody to know. He suspected that the Nazis had some weapon that they were concealing, or he knew it was something important for them to do what they did. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how the D-class works in Argentina, because my understanding is the current president is working to declass everything they know about what happened with Hitler. So my guess is he survived. We're going to find out about it, but everything comes in drips and drabs. All right, so let's go to Admiral Byrd. I feel that even though his intention was to go down and uncover what the Nazis were intentionally hiding, these bases, if you will, or if there's anything in the base, I think he came across this advanced being, but not the one Buzz came encountered with. And I'm going to talk about more of that here in a second, because it's all going to wrap back. So the advanced being Admiral Byrd talked to was an advanced being, more peaceful. Don't make the mistakes we've made. You've got enough firepower to blow up the world. It's almost as if the parent that is loving and saying, no, honey, we don't play with bombs. You're going to hurt yourself and destroy the planet. That's how it sort of feels. I do feel he was an advanced being. There was, it was communication telepathically. And I do feel he was in service to others. So the question is he in service to self or service to others? Admiral Byrd's being was in service to others for sure. And I do feel he was demonstrating, look, the universe is filled with life. And when you guys act up and blow up your own planet, you're going to affect the rest of us. And so I feel like there is an affecting of the rest of the ecosystem, even if it is interplanetary. So it would be a massive disruption if we ignited ourselves. So basically he's telling the children to calm down. And then also as a demonstration of their advancement, I do feel that he came in or aware or saw or in some capacity learned of transportation devices that can move so fast it can go from pole to pole almost instantaneously and maybe within minutes. And so it was such an advancement, like we better maybe listen to these beings. And I feel like it was of such importance that he did indeed create a diary, that I feel like he did kind of keep that off to the side and very secret. Now, to kind of go into the pyramid structures, because it all this is going to tie together. It's crazy how it all ties together. There are definitely peaks and valleys to the civilization, not only with us, but on other planets. It's almost like it's innate that we are going through a process where we advance and we decide, are we going to go the good direction or the bad direction? Seems like oftentimes we take the negative course and we end up harming ourselves. Either that or there's some other kind of natural cataclysmic event that sets us back. So if I would lose the internet and electricity, I probably wouldn't be able to survive very long just because I wouldn't know how to hunt. So we kind of get dependent on our technology. And I think that's a lesson that we all need to learn, is how do we survive when we don't have technology to help support us? I think that's kind of the big lesson here. So I do feel some of the structures that people perceive as pyramids are natural, but the pyramid structure that I showed with the 2 kilometer square feels like that is intentionally made. And there's another structure off to its side, situated and mirroring on a smaller scale on the Giza Plateau. And they're connected. I feel that connection strongly, and so does my other remote viewer. She feels it strongly too. So if you feel it different, let us know, because, hey, we're all in this together to sort of figure it out. Maybe I have a piece, maybe you have a piece. So let's figure, maybe my piece is wrong and you can correct me, and I'm all for that. But this is what I get in my remote view. So yes, the Giza Plateau is almost a smaller version pyramid situation as was in Antarctica. Antarctica was not always a frozen tundra, and it was lush at one time. Again, I think that was due to a pole shift. Now, was the pole shift due to something that was natural, like an asteroid strike? We do know that we've had some asteroid strikes before that ended the age of the dinosaurs. So was it that? Or was there a galactic war going on at one point? Now, I will say this about that. I do feel there is a Mars connection to all of this. There's definitely a Mars connection to all of it. So when we see, and whether, I'm not sure who's the Martian, and I kind of feel like we might be the Martians. But we just are, I guess it would be Graham Hancock would say we are beings with amnesia, if you will. But it feels like we've been in the past tied interplanetary with other planets. It feels like this universe, or at least the solar system, was teeming with life. And something happened which created the asteroid belt and this nuclear explosion on Mars. And thank you to the listener that pointed out that science has actually been done, where they found that, I believe, a bomb, this is about the size of the Empire State Building, I think, detonated up in the atmosphere, and due to radioisotopes, they've dated it back to 180 million years ago, which I found so interesting. And thank you to the viewer that put that out there on my last video. It's people like you that I love, because we all have a piece. We can all bring it together, and then we'll finally know, right? All right, so we know that cataclysm took place. Now, is that when the asteroid belt was created? Something happened that grazed the planet. So there may actually be two events. There may have been a self-destruction, and somehow some of the people got here and created bases here on Earth. So I do feel there is a subterranean base that is very advanced, not only in Antarctica, but I feel like in other places around the Earth. And the Giza Plateau is now the newest example of what we're talking about. Yeah, there's definitely that connection. So let me check my notes here. There's more stuff going to be discovered. That's what I keep getting over and over again. And it's going to have to trickle out a little slowly, because if you give the kids all the information at once, they lose their minds. So us kids, we would just lose our minds and we would act out because we're kids, essentially. So it is going to have to be a process where this information is coming out, and it's going to come out a lot more quickly. So it's like drip, 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 and then there's going to be a flood of information. So as society begins to say, okay, yes, I see that now, that makes sense, I've always wondered about that. Then you give them a little bit more, then you give them a little bit more, and then they begin, by the time the powers that be that distribute the information, that we finally say, yes, we can believe in that, because apparently we're the type that can't believe in anything until we're told to. But those of you watching this are not those people. But if you were, you see what I'm talking about. There are several that would be very resistant to that. So hopefully by the time they get done, drip, 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 everybody's sort of drawn that same conclusion, like, well, thank you for giving us what we figured out. That's the process, it feels like, that has to take place, so we collectively don't lose our minds. So it goes, if you think about it, if you hold a belief system near and dear to your heart, and you have for all your life, and you're somebody my age, coming into new information that contradicts everything you thought you knew is a tough pill to swallow. So let's be compassionate. It's okay. It's okay. Those of you watching this, I know you get it, because otherwise you wouldn't be watching this. You get it. So even if you don't agree with me, you do get it. So, advanced beings. So, this is what I want to talk about. So we're talking about that nuclear explosion on Mars, and did it affect us? I think indirectly it did. So let me just kind of give you where I'm headed with this. So that explosion, we know, is 180 million Earth years ago. But does that mean that that was just one and done, or was there more kerfuffling going on? There is an event 35 to 45,000 years ago. That much we know. That doesn't line up with the 180 million year ago detonation. But what else took place, right? And what I get is that in India, they have this mythology of basically Star Wars. It's the mythology of Star Wars in India back in the day. And I do feel there's a faction with service to self and then there's service to others. And it's good versus evil. And I feel like there was a collision, and that these advanced beings, and I don't know advanced from Earth, advanced from wherever they were. Sorry about that. If you're hearing the thumping, I talk with my hands. There was this dog fight, if you will. And I believe the people of India in their ancient history, I don't believe it was a mythology as much as they were witnessing events in the sky. And I believe a couple of them crashed, the good and the bad. And I feel like those are the advanced beings that were present. And, we have to remember, we cannot assume that all life is constructed the way our life is, and where we're limited. And if you take into what Greg Braden says and some of the other scientists about how our DNA has been modified, Billy Carson goes into it a great deal about how the Anunnaki shortened our lifetimes and that people used to live hundreds of years. So even though we're talking great distance of time, we have to be aware that not all life forms function the way we do. What does a fly live? 12 hours? So I can't even say, well, I can't. There's no way a human can live beyond 12 hours. I mean, it's that sort of mindset. We have to be careful what we marry into. And true science is not so much answering the question with a definitive answer. It's asking the question. And does it square? Basically, because only truth can square. Only truth will make sense. Lies never do. Lies will never make sense. And that's how you pick up on the liar. Their truths never square. So yeah. Who knows? Maybe, there is that Saturn moon out there that looks like the Death Star. Y'all need to go take a look at that. So, was that all about history? Or was that a story? We'll have to maybe remote view that. But our next remote view is because the hot topic now, and I don't know if you've seen it, Danny Jones is a wonderful podcast. He recently had a guest on who used to believe strongly in the moon landing, and I think had a parrot that was attached to the moon landing some way, and he got something special and he kept it. I'll dig into more of that, but you can find it on Danny Jones' podcast. You can go look at that now. But he says that the moon landing didn't take place. But as I slightly remote viewed it to get ready for this video, because it's our next thing that we're going to tune into, I do believe it did take place. But I think it is very confusing because there is propaganda associated with it, and it was intentionally done because they didn't know what direction, the government, if this was going to go great or not. And so they wanted to be prepared with their propaganda. A lot of the propaganda was done and used when we all watched, those of us alive at the time, the moon landing. We watched that on TV. There were some questions even I had as a little kid. That I'm like, how could that be? And we'll touch on that later. But, and then I'm going to bring in my other remote viewers too and get their sense of it to see, what do you think? Because when we're touching on this stuff, it is so interesting. And it's just interesting to see how many of us get it right. So you all watching, tune into that and just ask the simple question. If you want to do it without any training, close your eyes, take in 3 deep breaths, in through the nose, hold, and exhale through the mouth, okay? And then just ask the question, did Neil Armstrong walk on the moon? And then feel your body. Does it feel tight or does it feel light? And then let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Please give it a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm and people who are interested in all things woo and energy healing and doing energy healing. It'll help them find us. Thanks for watching. Take care for now.